All right, Marty, are we still on time? Are we still on time? Okay, making sure. 5 new individuals have now been named Hall of Fame members. It's time to meet each one and learn about what they did here at this college. They join a group of 42 that have joined the Hall of Fame before then. As I mentioned, baseball players back in the 1920s, all the way up to a volleyball player that played in 2002. Our first recipient tonight is Steve Vanoker. Baker City native, came to the college to play basketball. And he was not part of one, but 2 C of I men's basketball teams that made trips to Kansas City after winning the District 5 title and played for the first time ever in Kemper Arena and the NAIA National Championships. To put in perspective where Steve as a basketball player ranks, when he finished his career, he finished with 1,032 career points and 621 rebounds. It's a lot. Before him, there were only 3 other players in school history in over 50 years that put up numbers like that. And even to this day, there are only 13 people in the nearly 100-year history of C of I basketball that have put up comparable numbers. Steve scored 30 or more points in 4 games, including 30 points in a win over Weber State back in 1963. Scored 31 in a win against Willamette in 1963 as well. And yes, Steve even tried to play baseball at the college for a year as one of their pitchers. But as we're going to do tonight, it's not about the stats, it's about the memories. And at this time, to induct Steve Vanoker into the Hall of Fame, I welcome Larry Anderson.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that very much. This is an honor, an absolute honor to introduce a man that has been a part of my life since 1959. That's 62 years of friendship. I don't know how I would have gotten along in life without the advice and the direction of Mr. Vanoker. It's been truly an earth-shaking experience for me. From high school basketball to the College of Idaho, Steve, right at the end of his high school career, coming out of the state tournament, was offered a 1-year make good by Slatskill at Oregon State. He wanted to think it over. He thought maybe driving log truck was a better fit for him. At that time, Babe Brown, Coach Babe Brown, and Don Parmalee showed up and started wooing him, as well as his teammate Dan Ayers, 6'7" lad who came in, was a tremendous rebounder for the Yotes. So Steve and Dan accepted, arrived here a year after I did, and from that point on, I was able to experience 4 years of basketball with Steve and Danny, tremendous years. However, there's another story involved in this. Steve, in his junior season, we possessed another ball player that served as a role model for Steve. His name was Bob Marino, came out of Chicago, 6'1", rebounded with the 6'8" guys. He was something else, and a lot of the players who saw him then and a lot of the old coaches now will tell you that he could compete with the Elgin Baylors and the R.C. Owens. He was that good. And Steve watched him, learned from him, and learned one trick that he perfected in his senior year. A magical trick on the The basketball court hasn't been duplicated by anyone else. Every time we brought the ball down, Ayers would set a pick on the opposite side. Vanoker would rub off that pick. We'd get the ball to him. It'd disappear. We never saw it again until the opposition brought it back up the court. You look at the stats here and all that. That's because he shot every time. And I verified this. I looked in Mike's stats, and there's one glaring statistics that is there. And it proves this point, that Mandrake, the magician Vanoker, he had in bold assists career 0. While all this was going on, there was a running poker game in the subterranean refuges of Voorhees Hall. Seemed to be Vanoker's room, but they had strict rules. You had to go to class, take all. They would break every now and then to take Jay Johnson over to Vail, Steve's roommate, so Jay could sell the steer and pay Steve off. This went on all too often, never broke. There was one other incident. I'm not sure I should mention that, and let me refer to my notes if I may. I was going to say all these things that are already printed on here, but Marty didn't tell me what was going to happen there. I overheard someone at our table say he was a better coach than he was a ball player. And I think that is really true. Steve started his education career part-time the first year. He was at Middleton for part of the day, ran back to Boise, sold groceries for Joe Albertson, another C of I lad. Then Steve was called and got the job in the Boise school system. Fairmont Junior High, spent 2 or 3 years there, and then Terry Conley at Bora High said, hey, I need you. Brought him over as an assistant. Terry won a state championship, decided to depart for better pickings in Colorado, and Steve got the head job. Did a wonderful thing. He cared so much for his ball players. I only have 1 minute left, Marty. I think he was honored by his players time and time again. That's back when he made a big committal. The gym was always open when Steve was there. Summer, evenings, all the time. He promoted us. There were times where some of the kids, his players, didn't have a jacket or some slacks or a tie or a white shirt. And Steve would take care of that for him, make sure he had it. That's the kind of man he had. That's the kind of man he is. And my last comment is this. That they say that men, their ears and their noses never quit growing. In the case of Steve, his heart never quits growing. And if I may, and if I could right now, I'd like to introduce you to what is one of my best friends, was my best man. We should have died twice in our lives. We've been very close. And if you would, please welcome the new inductee to the College of Idaho Athletic Hall of Fame, Steve Vanoker.
I always told Larry that I would have passed him the ball, but I was a better shooter, you know. Thanks, committee. Thanks, Reagan, Marty. boy, they've done a job. I don't think the College of Idaho sports are in better hands than with you two. Holy mackerel. You know, it was said earlier, all the national contests that have been going on for the last few years. I'd also like to thank some people at the table. My wife, Barbara, my son, Scott, Tracy, granddaughter, Demi, Amber, daughter Amber, Juno, Carolyn, Kathy, Kelly, Kenny Schmidt, who's been a very close friend for many years. And I came here in 1959, and it was always kind of an interesting, Dick Carroll, I love you. God, I like Dick Carroll. And anyway, I played for Babe Brown 2 years, and then Dick for 2 years. And when I was first here, it was kind of interesting because one of the first people I met was Julian Lacka. Julian was a 6', 8" Basque from Ontario, Oregon. I didn't know Basque got that big, you know, and I found out they really didn't, you know. Charlie Alvaro, we roomed next to each other. And any of you knew Charlie, it was always, hey, brother, what are you doing? Hey, brother, you know. So I met Hawaiians. Then I started meeting boxers. Larry brought the boxing team in last year for a football game. And I got to see a guy like Roscoe Maddox. And Roscoe boxed here, and I said, what have you been doing? And he said, well, I was a colonel in the Air Force, and I've been at the Pentagon for the last few years. That's the kind of people, you know, we had here. Then I started meeting guys from Chicago. Holy mackerel. I couldn't understand them, you know. Bonaminio, you know. Bob Marino from Chicago was the best basketball player I ever played with. Hands down. He was something else. You probably don't know the name Gus Johnson, but Gus played at the University of Idaho, ended up with the Washington Bullets, and we played Boise State one night, Boise Junior College, and I think they each scored about 31 points. And Larry was right. He was the real deal, you know, no doubt about it. Interesting thing about college athletics, we always said everybody was a teammate. And one of the reasons were that in the 60s, we were playing more than one sport. And so everybody was part of the gang. So it didn't matter if you played football, basketball, or what, you were a teammate, you know. And some of them, you know, are still around, many of them that I see. And I always call them the 100% club because we're still 100% coyotes. We love it, you know. And we're coyotes, you know. We didn't use the word yotes, you know. That's for sure. Also, another special individual I want to say hi to. I coached him. Marty coached him. And I don't know how many of you know, but what a great individual Jim Grigsby. I'd like to do one last thing, and then I'll sit down. For the people out here, I don't know all of you, but who went to the college, graduated from college in the 50s and 60s, could you please stand up? The 1950s and 60s classes. I know a lot of table over there, you know. These people have been around quite a while. Thank you very much. It's been a great trip. Thank you.
One thing I failed to mention, if you look to my left, you see some plaques that are sitting right here. These are the plaques that will end up hanging in the J.A. Albertson Activity Center. Each of the plaques has a hand-drawn portrait of the student athlete from when they were here at the college. The original that they had is the one that is behind me right here, and that'll be the special commemorative plaque that they will be able to take home. Now, Marty wanted me to mention, if you look at Steve's right here, Marty seems to think it looks like kind of cartoonish, but it's actually a picture taken from the 1962, the cover of the 1962 Men's Basketball Media Guide. And it was a picture, if you saw the other side, he mentioned Dan Ayers was on the other side of that picture, and it's just a great, it still looks like Steve to this day. Congratulations to Steve Van Oker. Our next recipient is one of the first guys that I met when I came to the college back in 2001, John Calpin. John was a professional soccer player across the seas in England, had an outstanding playing career, had an outstanding coaching career before he made way to California and started coaching club soccer and high school soccer. And his track record coaching in California was unreal. Took a team that won like 3 games, won a sectional championship, I think they finished that year with 16 victories, and all of a sudden, C of I needed a soccer coach. And it was the 3rd year that we had soccer on our campus in 1986. And John came up and met with Marty, and Marty being a Torrance, California guy, and that's the area where John was coaching, and they struck a chord. And John Calpin became our coach, and the rest speaks for itself. 208 career wins. And you think about it, it doesn't seem like a whole lot until you realize that in soccer you're only playing 12, 16, maybe 20 games in a season. He won 10 or more games 14 times. He went to 10 playoff appearances. And you'll hear a lot more about his most impressive team a bit later, because all the boys are here tonight. Led the 2000 men's soccer team not only to the first conference championship in program history, but upset the number 2 ranked team in the nation to win a regional championship and went to the NAIA national championships. John started our women's soccer program from scratch. And I still think one of the greatest stories ever is that very first season in 1989, our very first game we ever played against in women's soccer was against that school, about 10 miles from here. And beat them 7-0, and beat them so bad that they quit their program for the rest of the year. But more importantly, I think every guy or gal that played for John knew his passion and what he meant to the game, and just wanted each and every person to play their hearts out. And I know when I got here and got a chance to spend some time with John, as good of a guy as there is, and definitely worthy of this award. To induct John Calpin into the C of I Athletic Hall of Fame is one of his former players, All-America goalkeeper Jake Steele.
Good evening, Yotes. I tell you, it is a tremendous honor. I think Mike did a fantastic job in really highlighting how much of a soccer junkie John truly is. To know that he was playing alongside the likes of the Pelés, the Johan Cruyffs, the Franz Beckenbauers, that at one point he was coaching U.S. national team players like Eric Winalda, Paul Caligiuri, Marcelo Balboa, players that those of us growing up watching soccer, knowing that this gentleman coached that level of a player, it was interesting by the time he ended up coaching any of us, especially on this 2000 team. John is a very philosophical coach. And I know that we're sort of under a little time constraint, and in true John fashion, I'm going to try and keep a long story short. But we were not only getting a great education in the classroom, the fact that at halftimes John would ask questions to us as a team, things like, what does this goalkeeper and Dracula have in common? Well, they're afraid of crosses. Meaning, get the ball out wide, get crosses in, you're going to score goals. Or his idea of using a three-dimensional formation to try and show Jared Larson or Ricky Latham where they need to be in relation to defenders. So you'd be sitting there watching John thinking, where's the stinking goal, John? Well, his chest was the goal. And these are the defenders. So again, you're sitting there in the heat of battle thinking, what is he talking about? You know, it's the idea of you don't pay for the same hamburger twice. What does that mean? Well, you bypass the midfield. Get the ball up to your strikers, let them go to work. So again, he could get into the weeds as much as he wanted to, but he really did challenge you in a short amount of time trying to figure out what in the world you needed to fix in the second half. But in all sincerity, he cared so deeply about us as not just players, but people on campus, to the extent that when you would see John walking, if you're walking in between classes and you see John walking across the quad, if you had a class coming up, you knew that you had to somehow avoid him because you'd be looking at your watch, just sweating bullets, thinking, is this long story ever going to get short? But the man epitomizes relaxed intensity, steady demeanor in the most heated pressures of a game. And more than anything, he believed truly that the betterment of the team was going to result in individual and collective successes. And I think when you look at our 2000 team and what we accomplished and what we're being inducted for tonight, it epitomized everything who John was, who believed if you give everything you can for the betterment of the game, something good will come out of it. And over his career, he had so many good teams that have provided not only good success on the field, but we have all in this room gone out and had success in life as parents, as professionals, and whatever we've done. And this man was a testament to all those qualities. So without further ado, I welcome John Calpin. Give a warm welcome to him.
This is going to be difficult. Can you hear me? More important, you won't understand me. Thank you, Jake, for that wonderful introduction. I give Jake a nickname. We used to call him Steelman. Now listen to this record. 4-year starter. Never missed 1 minute. 20 games a season. As a goalkeeper, that's incredible. So believe me, he's very special, along with all my players. That's it. What I want to do is thank the committee for such a marvelous honor. Believe me. There's 4 people, but I'd like to stand up. Linda Gibbons, the trainer, is here. And I want to thank Linda for always going the extra mile to keep my place fit and healthy. Mike Sappin, the best hire that Marty ever made, without question. Bill Blazer. Bill Blazer was my assistant coach, the best right-hand man you could ever have. Right? So I want to thank you as well. You've already met this gentleman earlier tonight. Goes by the name of Flannel. Jim. Whenever I needed any moral support, I always used to go and sit with Jim in his office for a couple of hours, and then I'd come out feeling good. Always. The best boss I ever had, Marty Ollie. Me and Marty used to like to go to the races. And Le Bois. And we give a lot of money to sick animals. And I've got one final thing to say to Marty. Over the years, I know there was times when you wanted to pin my ass to the wall. But guess what? You're going to have to settle for my place. Now, to a more serious note, how much time do I have? You said 5 minutes. Which 5? Okay, well, I'm just glad I can speak. But about 2 years ago, I couldn't. So, I was so thrilled when I got the phone call from Marty for the Hall of Fame. And I was so glad I could speak again. It's tough to hear, especially you two know me. So, can you imagine me not saying anything for a year? No, for sure. But anyway, all the soccer players that are in this room now, I'd like you to stand up. All of you. without these gentlemen, the 2000 team was very special. There was a team to the ultimate. One for all and all for one. What was good for one was good for everybody. But what's more important, they're going to become a Hall of Famers. And every one of them was also a Hall of Famer in the classroom with an average 3.25 GPA. So that's pretty special. But the reason I asked you to stand up, you set the foundation. Every player that played at the College of Idaho are a part of me. And I'd like to think I'm a part of them. So I just want to finish with a couple of final thoughts. When I come on campus, the first thing I did was cry. I hadn't been back for nearly 20 years. It's a very, very special place. Very special. Another player. And she's gonna come up next. And I remember Christine coming on campus as a freshman. And you deserve every honor that you're gonna get. Without question. I'd like to thank Jim Baker and Stephanie. Last night we had a reunion. They christened it the Calpin reunion. And it was absolute fun to see them all together again in one place. And they haven't changed a bit. Not a bit. But so before I close, this one other person I would not be here right now if it weren't for my wonderful wife, Sandy. When I was going through this, it was not very pleasant. And all I can say to Sandy is, she is my absolute rock. Without Sandy, I wouldn't want to be here. For sure. But I said that while last. Okay? And I love you very, very much. So have a wonderful night. And it's been a pleasure coming back. An absolute pleasure. But I could come back. Thank you.
How do you follow that? Congratulations, Coach. And as John mentioned, our next recipient is someone that he recruited. Our first ever women's soccer Hall of Fame member, Christine Halter-Jones. To this day, there's been 2 student athletes in the history of our women's soccer program, which is now 30 years that we've started women's soccer, that has been an all-conference player 4 straight years. Her playing career ended in 1993, and yet to this day, nobody's scored more goals in a game. Nobody's scored more goals in a season. Nobody scored more goals in a career than Christine. She had quite possibly the greatest week of a Coyote athlete in this school's history. Only other thing I could think of maybe, and he was here 2 years ago, Elgin Baylor scored 49 points in a game and 53 points in a game on back-to-back nights. All Christine did was score 6 goals and have 4 assists in a win on a Tuesday. And 3 days later, she scores 6 more goals and has 4 assists in a game. Scores 12 goals and has 8 assists in the span of 72 hours. Those of you who know soccer, you don't score 12 goals in some teams in a season. And she did it in the span of 72 hours. She went on to coach our women's soccer program for 4 years and has been key in our club soccer scene here in the Treasure Valley and is the greatest women's soccer player that this program's ever had. To induct Christine into the Hall of Fame, welcome our men's soccer coach, Tom Baker.
I know, Jake Steele, you talked about John's quiet intensity. I've been on the other side of the quiet part. It wasn't quiet. First of all, I'd like to thank all the folks that are getting inducted tonight. It's fabulous to see you all here. It's so meaningful. And you're all here because, especially on the sports side, you guys put up big numbers. You led up big numbers in ERA and big numbers in rebounds and things like that. Clearly, you heard Mike say it. Christine has the numbers. They are substantial and they are significant. You're going to hear me say significant a lot about Christine and this program. She didn't rewrite the record book for C of I. She wrote the record book for C of I. She came along in our second year of existence, and she's still the leader in many of our categories. She led the scoring in 3 of her 4 years. She led in assists all 4 years. She was a Western Region All-America in addition to her 4 years All-Conference, and she was a 2-time academic All-American. And those records are not likely to be broken anytime soon, if they ever get broken. So we talk about writing the record books. Her name's going to be in there for some time. But I want to talk about a different kind of significance that Christine had for the entire school as well as the soccer community here in this school. It has little to do with numbers, though. To do that, I have to give you a little history lesson, and Mike touched on it already a little bit. The men's soccer program was started in 1986. 84. John came along in 86. Marty Hawley was the one who started it all and then saw that it was so easy that what John was doing that let's just start a women's program while we're at it. He immediately started winning games when he got here, and when he started the program, he started with some really top-notch players. I'm way down the line of coaches when it comes to soccer coaches here at C of I. I'm not nearly as illustrious as this man is, but I'll tell you this, I know you have to sign some top-notch, significant players in order to start a program. And John went about doing that. First year, he pulls in gals like Holly Miyazaki, Brooke Antonson, Erica Lee, all 4-year players, all significant players at the college. Brought them in, first year, goes about winning games. Beat that school down the road, first game, you know that's right. The next year, they looked to take the next step. In Christine, John lucked into a player out of Bishop Kelly. She was looking at bigger schools. She was looking at bigger opportunities. She took a chance on a fledgling program that had only been started the year before, that was already having some success. And she joined the friendly confines of Sims Field. And I'll tell you this, I am forever grateful for that, because it led to many things in the next 30 years that for all this program. Many things came from that initial signing of Christine. Other BK players followed. You had the Marin family come in. Trish Marin ended up being a professor here at C of I. Of course, I think the most significant signing, of course, is Stephanie Halter. She's, of course, later make an honest man out of me. She became Stephanie Baker, so that, I appreciate that. But with Christine, that probably doesn't happen, honestly. In our time here, and this, I don't think it really has anything to do with Christine, but in our time here, we had 7 marriages between the two teams, men's and women's soccer. There's 7 marriages. And that's significant because of what this school is about, and I'll get more to that in a second. Not only that, Christine ended up marrying Brandon Jones, a baseball player here. So now we're making more connections, and that was significant as well. Tack onto that, add a couple of nieces and nephews into the mix at the college, playing sports at the college, and you are now really starting to build something special. I mention all these relationships because they're the real significance that I have found in all the years since Christine and I played here under John. I found that being part of this community is, and giving back is what makes this place so special. It's why Marty Holly's been here for 40 years. It's why Jim Fennell has bled purple and gold and has given his heart and soul to every kid who's ever played at O'Connor Fieldhouse or on Sims Field or at Simplot Stadium. It's why Mark Smith has been working with athletes and history majors and all students here for so long. It's why Jasper Lakowski brought his salty Philadelphia-ness to this area and is still here. There's something special about this school. Christine answered the call, came back, coached, was here for 4 years coaching because she wanted to give back. She wanted to be part of it. She stayed for those 4 years, and then 20 years later, I followed her lead. She started the whole thing, though. Player, coach, and it started moving on. Now we've got relatives rolling through here. She joined a new program. She helped make it impactful. She coached here, but most importantly, she showed the way that we're supposed to do things, at least for me. She is significant to C of I in so many ways, but until she got the call for the hall, I didn't even see how significant she was. And she's a former player, she's a former coach, but she is forever family, and she is forever a Yodi. Please welcome Christine Halter-Jones.
Wow. Well, a hard act to follow with John, but I have to thank him. C of I wasn't necessarily on my radar when I was looking for schools. As Tom said, I was looking at some big schools, but John talked to me, and I came out here, and I fell in love. Phenomenal school. Phenomenal program, and as Tom, my brother-in-law, has stated, it's a family. My nephew, he's on the semifinal national lacrosse team from this year, so that which is, I mean, just my niece, Tom's daughter, a national swimmer here at C of I. So as you can see, we love this school, and I can't thank everybody here, Marty, for giving me the opportunity, John, for giving me the opportunity to come back and coach and give back to the school. It was just my daughter, who's just finished her junior year, we really pushed for C of I, but unfortunately, she's chosen to go back east to school. So my son, who's here, Sean, you might want to. We're hoping for another Yote in the family, so I'm not sure if that's what my son wants, but we would definitely love some purple and gold to be wearing at home again. But I can't thank everybody enough. Brian Smith, I'm not sure he's here tonight, who now has the women's program. A former player, same time that Tom, my sister, myself, were here at the school. I believe Aaron Luthi who's here, and Kevin Kramer, all players at the same time we were here. It's just been a family. We've continued to play over the years together. We just don't, it's a family. I don't know how much more I can stress that, and I think everybody who's been here, who's gone through, either had kids here or went to school here, been a part of it, understands truly what it means to be a Yote. So thank you, Tom. Very heartfelt thank you. And thank you, everybody. This is horrible. Thank you.
It's interesting, you keep hearing that same word, family, over and over again. You know, when I took the job here in 2001, I came on my interview, and I sat with Marty for maybe 30 minutes, and then he goes, hey, we're going to go have lunch. We went and had lunch. What was it? We had our all-staff meeting that day, and Marty bought Idaho pizza. And instead of me having an interview, I was actually sitting in an all-staff meeting with John. Regan had just gotten hired as the women's coach. Liz had just got hired as our volleyball coach. And it was like I got to see what a family was all about. And it's just great to hear that word coming up over and over and over again. For me, family means baseball. In fact, my wife can't be here tonight. My son can't be here tonight because they've got a baseball game. And I know that our associate AD, Danielle Brazil, couldn't be here tonight. I know she's watching on the screen right there because they've got a baseball game. Baseball's been a part of my life for the last 2 decades, working in pro baseball. I've seen a lot of great athletes, but there hasn't been a better pitcher that's come through these parts than Levi Lacy. Levi Lacy helped put College of Idaho, and at that point Albertson College baseball, on the map. Had a good program when it came back in 1987 up until about the mid-1990s. But when Levi stepped on the field in 1997, went 11-1 that year, helped the Coyotes get all the way to the Super Regional Championship game where they fell, brought a lot of guys back the next year, and had the best season on the mound, and helped the Coyotes win the 1998 NAIA World Series and bring home a national championship. He's the only player in school history to record 100 strikeouts in back-to-back years. His senior year, he went 14-1 with a 1.37 ERA. You might not know a whole lot about baseball, but you know that those numbers are really good. His best pitching performance came in the championship game of the regional at Simplot Stadium against Lewis Clark State, who was a juggernaut in baseball and still is. Through a complete game, one hitter, and the Yotes beat LC 15-1 to pop the champagne and earn a trip to go back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. He got the final out on the mound in the championship game as they beat Indiana Tech 6-2 to bring home a national title. And he kept going from there. He ended up being a head coach at Everett Community College for years. helped send us some of our better players. I see Chris Larson's here today. He was a player from Everett. Riley O'Brien, who is now a pitcher at the AA level with the Tampa Bay Rays organization, is a kid that Levi sent this way. And now Levi continues his baseball journey as a scout for the Texas Rangers. He is a baseball man true and true, and one of the reasons he came here is the guy who's going to come and introduce him, our head baseball coach, Sean Humberger.
Mike said pretty much everything, so I just want to introduce Levi. Come on up. I'm just kidding you. I've been fortunate to be in the Coyote baseball program for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of outstanding players come through our program. So when Marty called and said, hey, do you have anybody that you would recommend you think should be nominated for consideration, I had to run everybody through a filter because there's been so many great players come through the program on who really is the most deserving of this recognition. And in doing that, I looked at three things. Obviously, performance on the field. Second thing, how they affected the culture of the Coyote baseball. And then the third thing was the loyalty to the program, as they continue to be a true Yote. And obviously, Mike just talked about performance on the field. I mean, you can't say enough about what Levi did, 25-2 over 2 years with a below 2 ERA. On top of that, 14-1 his senior year and the one loss. I mean, do you really need defense for one loss? But I'll defend his one loss. Before we were heading down to start the year, we went over to Old Rodeo Field because Simplot wasn't ready at that time. We played at Simplot Stadium, and we were getting ready to play, and Levi was pitching in a scrimmage, and they had an old concrete tab around the pitcher's mound to prevent some of the wear and tear. And a ground ball got hit back to Levi, and the ball hit the cement thing and bounced up and hit him right in the eye. And so before we went down, we weren't even sure he was going to be able to pitch, but he pitched with one eye. He just wasn't very effective. So that was his only loss on the year. His only loss on the year was that first game of the year. And he went on with that, and like Mike said, we, at the regionals, to get us to the World Series for the first time, he pitched twice and got 2 wins at the World Series, got a win, got the save in the national championship game in his only relief appearance as a Coyote. And then I look at the second thing, and obviously we've had a lot of great players and a lot of great stats, but I looked at the second thing, and that's how they affected the culture of Coyote baseball. And like Mike said, we reinstated baseball in 1987. Coach Mooney came in right away and built a winning tradition. They won the conference championship the first year of reinstatement. We won 5 straight conference championships when we reinstated through 92 or 93 or whatever it was. There was an immediate winning culture in the program. But the big thing is taking a winning culture and turning it into a championship culture. And that's the big difference. And how do you get a group of individuals who have never won a championship, never won the ultimate championship, never beat Lewis and Clark State, who's won 10 national championships at the time, and that's the team we've got to beat to go to it. How do you get them to believe that they're better than that team and that we should be there? And that's the big thing, was belief. And we figured out how to get them to believe it, and that was insert Levi Lacey. If anybody who knows Levi, there's nothing he does that he does not believe he's the best at. Plain and simple. That may seem cocky, and if you're on the other team, yes, he's cocky, and he's not afraid to talk about it. But if you're on his team, it's infectious, it's contagious, and it makes you believe that you're the best. And that's really what happened in 1998, is Levi really changed the culture of our program through his belief. And, like I said, we had never beat Lewis and Clark State. Rarely did we beat them during the year, but we had to beat them to go to a regional, and all he does is step out and throw a one-hitter against them to lead us to a World Series. And that was his belief. And yeah, we talk about a national championship, but that was the start of changing to a winning culture, where we went to 4 World Series over 5 years. Followed up with a national runner-up, a 3rd place finish, And Levi wasn't on those teams, but believe me, Levi was as much a part of those teams as he was the actual national championship because of him changing our culture. And that really is what separated me when Marty said is that's the guy. And then I said the third thing, which is really loyalty. And Levi, as Mike said, has sent all these great players. But the loyalty part of it started on a little bit of a rocky road, and I'll try to keep it quick. But in 2001, I got a call, said, hey, would you guys like to come to this summer baseball tournament? Lewis Clark State does it every year. There's 16 teams, international competition. You get to play Chinese Taipei, a team from the Dominican. We'll waive the tournament fee. You guys can camp out. It's like an orientation. We're all about orientations here. You get to know each other. Bring some alumni. You go as the Caldwell Coyotes because you can't use school money. We haven't done any eligibility checks. So come as the Caldwell Coyotes, camp out. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a heck of a deal. And it could be a fundraiser if we make the money round. So my first call was to Levi. Hey, he just got done with Pro Ball. Will you go with us? I'm a Yote. Anything for the Yotes. All right, Levi's going with us. We got a chance to make some money, too. Well, about a month before the Grand Forks, I get a call from Levi. He says, Coach, I just got to tell you, I got a call from the Seattle Studs, and they're going to pay me to pitch for them in Grand Forks, so I can't go with you. I'm like, all right, I'm okay with that. We probably weren't going to make the money round against all these teams anyway. Well, as it ended up, the Coyotes did make the money round. Matter of fact, made the championship game, and guess who we played? The Seattle Studs. Guess who the MVP of the tournament was? Levi Lacey, pitching for not the Coyotes, the Seattle Studs. Guess what the difference between first and second place was? $9,000. So, in my mind, Levi still owes us $9,000. So, but I forgave him after all the players he sent us over the year, and he's a true Coyote, and he's become a true friend. I mean, we've worked many baseball camps together. We've foul-hooked many fish on the Kenai River together and smoked a few cigars on the deck together, and he's become a true friend, and I couldn't be more proud of somebody. So, Levi Lacey.
Thanks, Hum. I'll find one way or another to get the Yotes that $9,000 back. First, I'd like to thank the committee and just the entire Coyote family. It's been a big part of my life. It's really helped steer me in the direction that I've went over the last 20 years since I've left this program. Next to me, my number one fan, Emma Kay. Last time she was here. She was in my beautiful wife's stomach 7 years ago when the '98 Coyotes went into the Hall of Fame. So she's always wanted to be a part of this, and so she wasn't here when I was playing. So I told her she could come up and join Dad while I got to live this moment. For me, first Hummer calls me last night and says, hey, I got to think about the things I'm going to say, and I can't just come up with it in a heartbeat, and then I got to go and top that because, you killed it, Hum. That was a great job. So for me, this program and what it's done for me through the years is just really set a foundation about how I go about business. I've always been a baseball guy, and I love the game, and I was good, but I didn't realize how good I was till I stepped foot on this campus. And the intensity that Hummer had, and if anyone knows Coach Mooney, the attention to detail that he had, and the persistency that got me here. I didn't know I was going to end up here either, and 14 days in a row after coming home, and my roommates that were basketball players in junior college said, the guy from College of Idaho called again and wants you to call him back. Finally, I called Mooney and said, hey, I'm coming. Send the letter. Just don't call me for 2 weeks. I'll be there. And when he showed up to pick me up at the airport and dropped me off at Heyman, rolled my box of clothes off the back of the truck, that changed me forever and really set a foundation. So for me, like not just what this program did for me, but as I went on, coach 17 years of junior college baseball and an academy and like affected hundreds and hundreds of players, that really started here and what this program did for me. And so it's just, it's been a great time to get to know everyone here. I appreciate it. Everything you've done. This has been just a wonderful event. And this place has a really high place in my heart. I'll always be a Coyote, and I'll support it forever. Like my friends are here, and the Trojans that I've moved on to wear the purple and be a part of the Coyote family. It's just never ending for me, and I really thank everybody involved here, and I appreciate this honor, and I'm forever a Coyote, so thank you very much.
Our final individual inductee is something special here tonight. Marks the first time in our Hall of Fame's history that we've inducted not one, but two female student athletes into the Hall of Fame. To think about the resurrection of our women's program, a few years ago, Shirley Krager was inducted into the Hall of Fame and was really the pioneer of starting women's athletics on this campus and really started to get women's inclusion here at C of I. And it's built to the volleyball programs in the early 80s that were winning 25, 30 games a season, the birth of the women's soccer team, the outstanding women's skiers that we've had. But in 1996, we started a women's golf program. And when people say fledgling, that was our women's golf program at the time. And then along came Jenny Rodwell. She was the top golfer in the Treasure Valley. She was the top golfer in the city of Caldwell. She could have went and played golf anywhere. She was that good. But as we heard about her parents earlier in the evening, they lived, eat, breathed College of Idaho. And as I read in a story that was written about Jenny back in 2001, the reason she came here is, well, Marty Hawley told her she's coming to College of Idaho, so she's going to go to College of Idaho. Once she got here, she made an immediate impact. She won the Pacific Northwest Regional Championship as a true freshman and finished 6th at the NAIA National Championships. The next year, she goes to Nationals, finishes 11th. Next year, she goes to Nationals, finished 8th. And as a senior, she goes back a 4th time, something that's unheard of as an individual in NAIA golf, and finished 4th. But above all with that was what she did outside of golf. She was a 2-time NAIA Scholar Athlete. She won the Sears Directors Cup Postgraduate Scholarship, which can go to anyone. Jenny won that award. And personally did a lot of work for me because when she was an undergrad, she was the sports information assistant. And this was back when the internet was just really starting to come about. And when I got the job here in 2001, our website, the only reason we had an athletic website was because of Jenny. And she went on to work in the sports information office at the NAIA and was as good of a person that they had there and was really an asset to me in my young years as a sports information person. I'm so excited for her to go into the Hall of Fame. And her former coach, Mark Owen, Hall of Fame member from a basketball player, will introduce Jenny Rodwell Ginsburg. Coach O.
We've heard the words foundation, and that young lady right there, she not only laid the foundation for women's golf here at the College of Idaho, she probably did it for the men's program as well, because she was that good. 3-time All-American, 98, 2000. Mike said it all there. I'll just tell a story about Jenny. And in 1998, I'm assisting Marty Hawley in basketball, and they come up and they say, "You're going to be the golf coach." Oh, okay, good. All right. Well, you got a good player, Jenny Rodwell, and I'm considered her coach. It was just a pleasure to follow her around. Coaching has a lot of aspects to it. You can watch a player swing the golf club. You can watch him putt. I'm pretty good at if she did it different the second or third time, I'd go, "That's not what you did the first time. Go back to the first time when you hit it straight and not crooked." A story about her that it was just a pleasure to follow her. She was so, excuse the word, damn good at golf. But I believe it was her junior year, she had a little, golfers are a little quirky. She had a little problem lining up. So she would say, "Coach O, I want you to stand behind me and line me up." I'm like, "Okay, tell me what to do." Literally, tell me what to do. So your shoulders have to be parallel, your waist have to be parallel, your feet could be open a little bit. And I said, "Okay, you look good." And we practiced it a couple times, and she'd hit it down the middle. And I'm thinking to myself, what if she hits it crooked one time? That's going to be my fault. She'll turn around, look at me, and say, "No, you didn't have me lined up." In 1998 at the national tournament, she shot a 73 in the national tournament. Most of us can't shoot 73 if we play 9 holes. Okay? There's a clap back there. In that 73, was it hole 1? It was hole 1. So I'm nervous as all get out. It's the first hole. I've got to line her up. So I'd get behind her, and I'd go, "Yep," and I'd step to the side twice. 2 steps just to get out of her line of vision. She hits it down the middle. I'm like, "Yes, yes, Coach O, you did good." Second shot. She's literally in the middle of the fairway, and I will set the scene here. It's an elevated green with a creek and a rock face. Second shot, lined up, yep, take my 2 steps. It is a line drive. It's straight. I got her straight, but it hits the rocks. And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, here we go. First hole, we're all nervous, right? It hits the rocks, bounce up on the green, she 2 putts for par. She shot a 73, people. Think about that, in the national tournament. To me, she allowed me to be part of her life, her journey, her parents. I want her to know that she did amazing things for the College of Idaho, both on the golf course, classroom, and obviously helping Mike with the website. I can't tell you the pleasure it is to introduce Jenny Rodwell Ginsburg. Welcome to the hall.
Thank you, Coach O, and thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for really a memorable night for everybody that's been in attendance. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to say tonight and trying to find the right words to express the gratitude that I feel towards the college for the opportunities I was provided while I was a student at this fine institution. And looking back, I thought about stories about how the liberal arts education really enriched my life, both while as a student and now as an older individual. And I thought about how excellence was achieved in these unlikely situations, and actually going back to that first hole was that exact example that I was going to talk about. I don't know what would have happened had it not gone onto the green, but we'll move forward. But I decided to keep it simple and really to talk about community. And so many other people tonight have brought up this community term or talked about family. There's an incredible community that every single person in this room is contributing. As a student, I was lucky enough to experience it on a daily basis, that each of you make choices that are impacting the lives of student athletes. Whether it's rescheduling an exam or a paper for a student, or helping spend more time on the practice field, or even help leading a project, you're impacting the lives of these student athletes and building a legacy. Thank you to my family, friends, professors, coaches, and others that made an impact to me during my college career. Congratulations to the other inductees tonight, and thank you.
We can give one more round of applause to all of our individual inductees. Since the Hall of Fame began back in 1989, starting in 1999, we began inducting the best of the best in terms of teams that played here at the college. Men's basketball teams in 1984, 1955, and 1996, along with the Refrigerator Bowl football team in 1953, Levi and Sean Humberger's 1998 NAI World Series champion baseball team, and last inductee ceremony was our national runner-up women's basketball team in 2001. Tonight, the 2000 men's soccer team gets to join that elite group. And to think about our men's soccer program in its 35-year journey, nothing epitomizes what happened during that special fall. During a stretch of October and November, the Coyotes rattled off 13 out of 14 victories. Part of that was a home win against Concordia, which was one of their big rivals, not 1-0, but 6-1. They played that team next door, hung 6 goals against them, and absolutely peppered the all-conference team. Dan Bruce was named Conference Player of the Year. Jared Larson, Ben Moore, Cole Michelson, Rick Latham, Andy Reid, Jake Steele, all earned all-conference honors. And John Calpin was named Conference Coach of the Year, but they weren't done. They went on to the conference championships, had to go on the road, beat Concordia 2-1 to advance to the regional championships, where they had to go all the way up to Burnaby, British Columbia, and win 2 games. Had to beat Concordia for a 3rd time. I can honestly think, if I go back through the record books, there hasn't been very many times where we beat Concordia twice in a row, let alone 3 times in a row. This team did that. And then had to beat the number 2 ranked team in the nation, Simon Fraser, a school of 60,000 students, on their own home pitch in the rain. And these boys did that. The biggest upset in school history, blanked Simon Fraser 2-0 to earn a berth to the NAI National Championships in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 17-6 record that year, and to this date, the only team that's ever represented C of I men's soccer in the national championships. Our athletic director at the time was Marty Holly. He had to pay the bills for all these trips. And it's my pleasure to introduce Marty Holly to induct the 2000 men's soccer team.
Thank you, Mike. I was going to talk about everything he just talked about. The thing that I remember about this team, well, there's several things, but to go to Simon Fraser and win a school of 60,000, and in Canada, their intercollegiate system's different than ours, and the best players, some of their Canadian Olympic players play for Simon Fraser. That's how good Simon Fraser was. And Mike talked about beating Concordia, which incredible to beat them 3 times in a row. but the way they did it, and you can see championship teams, they sort of build, and you get that feeling, and once it starts, it's very difficult to stop. And that team, the 2000 team, got that feeling. They talked about Levi's confidence. Confidence, you got to have it. This soccer team had that confidence. And what I remember is they qualified to go up and play in Canada. I don't think we're even thinking going to the Nationals at this point. We got to go up and play Concordia and Simon Fraser. We got our work cut out for us. And they take off, they're driving, and they get to La Grande, and the road's closed because of a snowstorm, and they come back home. We had to scatter and get them plane tickets to fly them to British Columbia. So right off the bat, things are not going well. When you travel, you want things to go as planned. But what all championship teams have is, the older I get, the more I realize this, mental toughness. You ask everybody in this room, what is mental toughness, and you probably get 209 different answers. But it's something that you have when things go wrong, you find a way to make up for it. They had mental toughness. They had talent. Don't get me wrong, there was talent on that soccer team, but they were mentally tough and weren't about to let little things bother them. And the third thing that team had, other than talent and mental toughness, was incredible character, unbelievable character. And it was touched on earlier in the evening. When you talk about the success that this group has had, I mean, to the player, to the man, they are a success. Most important as parents, but as professionals. And I'd like to think that playing for Coach John Calpin and the camaraderie and the feeling, you know, we are so blessed in this room when you talk about competition, because I'm going to get in trouble here for saying this, but you're in an English class, you go to class 3 times a week, and you work hard, and you read, and you write, and you do everything. But what you get out of playing competitively in college is something that is lifelong. You don't forget anything. And I guarantee you, watching last night at the reunion, when these guys saw each other, it was, wasn't it, Jim? It wasn't it, Coach? It was the feeling, just seeing your teammates, that you've accomplished something that no other team at the College of Idaho has done. They go there and they win in Canada, and then they go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they lost the first round, but to the national champions. And what was it, 80, 85 degrees, guys, at that game? It was the coldest thing I've ever experienced in my life in New Mexico. I think in New Mexico is hot. Well, it was the coldest place on the planet. And I've never seen anything like it. I can't tell you how cold it was with that wind. But they lost 4-2, I think, but it was a much closer game than that. And there's been 35 teams at the College of Idaho. None compare with this soccer team. They need to be, deserve to be, should be in our Hall of Fame. And I know the committee, it was an easy vote. I am so honored to get to put the 2000 John Kelpin men's soccer team in our Hall of Fame. Regan, would you come up? Would the players from that team come up, and we're going to give you your awards individually? If you guys are, come on, move, let's go. There we go. Why don't you just spread it out here? We don't have enough room, but we'll make it work. Yeah, we don't. Regan, I'll just have you. They got names. Okay, I'm just going to call a name, and Regan's Yeah, yeah, we'll get, yeah. Coach Rossi, we're honored to have her as our athletic director now. She's taken this place to new heights, and she's going to give your individual awards. Roger Aguilar. Alphabetical, if that helps. Chris Brazil. The player of the year in the conference, and I was lucky enough to coach him, Danny Bruce. Jake Carson. Brian Davies, professor at the College of Idaho. Now I lost my place. Brandon Florence. Yeah, I'm surprised you let him play. Jared Larson. Rick Latham. Ryan Massengill. Cole Michelson. The coach at Cal Baptist, by the way. Ben Moore. Andy Reid. Ben Reid. Best goaltender we've ever had, Jake Steele. Well, Seth Carson could not be here. Matt Kentazar, Scott Killeen, Brad Thornburg, and Chandler Weller rounded out. Anybody we missed, guys? Who? And Zach Moore. All right, guys. This is our team. Let's let them go back to the chairs. Let them know how much we appreciate them. Guys, a couple of the players, Ben and Jared, want to say a couple words.
Thank you. Wow, what an honor. And I know we're tight on time, so we're going to try to wrap this up. But thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you to the committee for nominating us. And I'm just going to run through a couple of other important thank yous and then hand it off to our good friend Jared. So obviously thank the college, current leadership, Jim and Doug, past leadership, Marty, I don't know where you went, but thank you. What an education we got while we were here. We were fortunate to play soccer at the same time. So huge thank you to all of our professors. It was awesome for them to support us in and outside of the classroom. There are a number of folks, I think, mostly in the back corner, that were a part of all of our youth development growing up, giving us the chance. So thank you to that group, and also everybody who's just supported us during our time here. Two more big ones. Congratulations to John Calpin, one of the most genuine, real, and intelligent soccer coaches and people that I've ever been around. The cool thing about John is he cared less about results and more about effort. And we were fortunate that our effort turned into results. And a lot of that's because of John. Lastly, our parents. They were like a team in and of themselves. They traveled together, traveled with us as well as professional sports teams do. I don't think there were many games that were missed. It was amazing to have their support along the way. So thank you to my parents, Pam and Ed, who are here, but the whole group, because we couldn't have done it without you. I hope you all have your tissues ready, but Jared Larson.
Apparently I'm a legend, and I don't know it. It's an absolute honor to be here tonight, and really it's touching to receive the award on behalf of an amazing team. You know, we're not here celebrating wins, and we're really not here celebrating losses. And there's nobody really keeping score. And at the end of the national game that we lost 4-2, the hardest thing I've done at this college was take off my jersey. And if you've played here, you know why. So there's three things I hope that you can take away from tonight, from the 2000 men's soccer team. And number one is nothing can stop the resolve of a convicted soul. And that's what it was. It was really a story of David and Goliath. I'm pretty sure if we played Simon Fraser 10 times, we would have lost 9 times. But there was something special. And I will tell you what, it's amazing when you have an opportunity to play with one individual that's amazing. It's really impressive when you put 20 people on a soccer field that just don't care about themselves, but they just care about the other 19 individuals, and they work harder for the other people's success, and they desire other people to receive accolades, and that's what 2000 meant to me. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't pretty. Calpin allowed fistfights at practice, colorful language happening all over the place. But he walked a delicate dance with 20 players, and he allowed them to be themselves, and he allowed them to be creative, and he allowed them to explore something that we hadn't had the opportunity to do yet. The second thing is good players inspire themselves, but great players truly inspire other people. We had a lot of good players that inspired themselves or motivated. And as you play on teams, you know there are days when you wake up and you just have it and you feel it. But the reality in 2000 was 20 boys stepped on a pitch every single game, and they inspired other people. I think we even inspired Jasper Lecalzi to get a red card and be ejected out of a soccer game. And maybe the third and most important thing that you can take away is that always conducting yourself with intent to leave a legacy behind. And that's what John Calpin instilled in every boy that showed up. That when you put on a jersey, when you walk on a pitch, when you throw your pitch like Levi did, you represent something bigger than yourself. You represent a school. You represent people that came before us, Aaron Luthi, Kevin Kramers, and you represent a future that will come behind. John Calpin, many know, he had a gambling issue with horses along with Marty Hawley. In addition to Benson and Hedges and horrible Brute Cologne. But there's two things that a little old lady taught me about 10 years ago. And related to his love of horses. There's two things that we can learn from horses. When you approach a horse, they're immediately looking at you and they ask two questions. Number one, do I trust you? And number two, can you lead me? And I'll never forget 9 young boys showing up on campus our freshman year, looking at John Calpin, asking those two questions. And the old Scottish bastard looked back and he molded wild Mustangs into thoroughbreds, not on the soccer field, but in life. And I am so grateful and so thankful for John Calpin. And I know on behalf of everybody that played, we love him so much. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Nice catch, Adam. As we round out our evening, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mike Stafford tonight. He's done a phenomenal job of putting this information together and being our MC tonight. Thank you, Michael. Again, I'd like to thank our friends at the rodeo. We couldn't have done this without you guys, and your support is never not appreciated. Thank you again to the committee that spent many hours and a lot of their volunteer time in putting such a great, tremendous evening together. We couldn't thank you enough. And I think as we round out tonight, we heard a lot about some great players who did some phenomenal things here. And we heard about some great academic achievements and achievements on the first hole that led us the way, right? Achievements on the mound, achievements on the pitch, achievements in the classroom, Fenn. Couldn't have done it without you, bud. But I think the big takeaway is that, like we just heard, it's about leaders and the people we trust to lead us on this campus, our two presidents, to lead us. Marty Hawley, who set the bar so high, I can only hope to attain it someday. I hope tonight you enjoyed yourself. I hope you all feel very special, because we know this is a special place and it is something that we all take pride in, to be a part of this Coyote family and what that truly means. And it is my privilege to welcome our latest inductees to our Hall of Fame. Let's please give them one more round of applause. Thank you all and have a good night.